Okay, good morning, class. Today we're going to start a new topic in this course in natural language processing, and that topic is machine translation, which is one of the active research area as a research as well as an application. And we're going to see some examples later on how translation is really important for language understanding and cross-lingual communication. Okay, so in this topic we'll try to see four important points. First, we are going to have an introduction with some examples on what machine translation is, the different kind of methods that we have. Then we'll try to see the challenge that we are going to face. Mind you, machine translation is concerned about converting a text from one language to the other. So all the associated problems that we have in understanding and processing a single language would double itself now. Like if you have to do translation from language A to language B, then you have to be concerned about the morphology, the syntax, and the semantics of language A, plus you have to do the same understanding and generation for language B. So we know that as we move from an elementary NLP application to such kind of high level or end user applications, the challenges are going to be enormous. So we'll try to see some of the challenges. Then we are going to see the application of machine translation, and finally we'll try to say some things about the different kind of approach that we have in machine translation, including the evaluation methods that we have. So the question in here is, why do we need machine translation? Can any one of you reflect on that one? Fakada, can you say something about why we need machine translation?
To get an information for every person by their own languages.
Okay, good. If we want to get information about or information for a person using his or her own language, then using a translation might be important. Any other reason? Makonnen?
Because of to understand what other language speaker talks about.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
ምሳሌ በሌላ ቋንቋ የምናገር ተናጋሪ የምናገረውን
Understand. Okay, okay, that's good. So this is what we have. People all over the world are using different language. We know that. We have more than 6,000 languages in the world, and but only few of them are in written form. We know that. Now, if you think about globalization, if you think about knowledge sharing from one society to the other, societies tend to document their knowledge or information, their history, their tradition, their education, or anything using their own language. And if one wants to understand the document or any written materials in another language, he or she either should study the language or should get an assistance from a translation system, either a human being or even a computer system. So whenever you think about knowledge sharing, whenever you think about understanding other societies or communities who use a different language, then the option that we have is either we have to study the language itself or need the assistance from a language expert who speaks both languages. Or the third option that we have is we can have a computer system assist us in the translation. So the reason for translation is that there are, more than 6,000 languages in the world, and we know that about 600 of them are in written form, which means the majority of the language that we have in the world are only in a spoken form, which means they don't have symbols to be, documented with. And from these 600 languages, only 95% of the world population is speaking only hundreds of the 100 languages. This shows you that the world is dominated by only few languages, even though there are many other. Now, with the development of technology, with the development of information and communication technology, we know that unless and otherwise, languages are part of this digital society or digital economy. We know that they are going to, from time to time, they are going to die or fade out from the system. So having a language, a machine translation would actually help people to recognize knowledge in other language, which is documented using a different scripting method. So if we see the definition that we have, I here present two definitions. One is from the European Association of Machine Translation, and the other one is by a book called Machine Translation, which is an introductory guide by Arnold. And the first one says machine translation is the application of computer, you see, because we're talking about a computational system. It is the application of a computer to the task of translating text from one natural language to the other, which means machine translation means using a computer program or a computer application for the task of converting or translating a text from one language to the other. It can be from English to Amharic, or from Amharic to Tigrinya, or from Tigrinya to Walaita, from Walaita to Arabic, from Arabic to Hebrew, whichever it is. But development of the application that can perform the translation from one natural language to another natural language is what we call machine translation, which means it is a machine performing the translation using whatever method that it has within it, which we'll see later on. The other definition that we have from the book by Arnold is machine translation is generally known as an attempt to automate. Mind you, automate means still developing an automatic system or a computer application for the purpose of translating all or part of the process of translation from one human language to the other. Now in here, the idea that we have, or the idea that's documented by the author is, when it comes to translation, delegating the whole job for the machine might not be, as promising as it seems, because we know that language is a very complex issue. So the translation of part of the text might be, commendable in here. So whenever you do part of the translation, then it means the human being is going to do some kind of post-editing. After the translation, the human being is expected to do some kind of post-editing to make it intelligible or understandable or grammatically correct or presentable to the readers. The part where we will do all translation is especially when you have a domain-specific translation. If it is in a specific domain, then you can do all translation, like think about weather forecast, think about reservation system, think about phone dialing or something like that, or time telling or something like that. Such kind of domains have a very few and finite number of vocabularies, which would be much easier to do a complete translation. But in a daily or conversational system, performing the whole translation using a computer might not be, having the best result. So that's why it recommend, or it also take part of a translation as an option. But keep in mind these two definitions of what machine translation is. Now, before going into the other details, let me take you to one case. Recently, not recently, like some years back, starting from some years back, we've been using Google Translate. Google Translate has been, a great engine for translating from one language to the other. And currently, as of today, previously it was around 102 and 103, but currently Google support 109 languages. Okay, within its domain, it contains 109 languages which offer translation between this language. And when we do that, mind you, if you simply perform a normal combination or pair between these 109,000 language, it would be close to 10,000. But we know that the translation pair is not to that level. So it has over 3,000 pairs of language. But one thing that you should understand is the translation is mainly done, taking English as a reference. So the translation is language 1 would be translated to English, then the English is going to be translated to language 2. Okay, this is how the translation is done, which means English is taken as a reference. So you can have language 1 being translated to English, then this translated to language 2. So this is one approach. What if you want to translate from language 2 to language 1? Then the process is going to be, the same. Language 2 would be translated to English, then English would be translated to language 1. So from the 109 languages that are actually included, Amharic is one of them, which is a good thing for Ethiopia. And currently there are 62 languages which are under development to be included in this group, which means after that we are going to have a total of 170, more than 170 language would be covered by Google Translate. And in these 62 new additions, which are under development, mind you, they are not yet active, but they are under development. We have 3 local language, which is Afar, Afan Oromo, and Tigrinya are being considered in this additional 62 language. So after the completion of the development, then we're going to have a good representation in Google Translate, considering the total number of languages that we have. Mind you, we have 109 languages, and from that, 1 is Amharic, and if we have 3 more, then it means it's going to be much appreciated. Now, the issue is we have to understand how the translation works, okay? So let's take few examples. For instance, using English, I gave a sentence, this is a course, and the translation is Yeha Kaedno. How do you feel about that? Yeshwas, how do you feel about this translation?
I think it is wrong.
Why? Why is it wrong?
Course related to subject.
Are you sure?
I think so.
Okay, translate this one. If I say the course of action, what does it mean?
It refers to action.
Course of action ስንል ምን ማለታችን ነው?
The action is going now.
No. It is a way of doing, አይደል እንዴ? The course of action ማለት the way of doing thing, አይደል? The way you do something.
Okay.
So this, fairly can be translated to አካሄድ. ኮርስ ኦፍ አክሽን ስንል አንድን ነገር የማረጊያ መንገድ ማለት ነው አይደል? ሶ ያ ደግሞ ይዛ አካሄድ ነው ማለት ነው። I know why you said it is lesson, because mind you, let's talk about disambiguation. ትዝ ይላችኋል ባለፈው we have taken an example in semantics. ፔን ብለን ነበር አይደለም? What is the first thing that comes to your mind? What comes the first thing that comes to your mind?
Writing.
But we know that it has 5 other definitions in the dictionary. So most of the time, even our mind is fixated on probability or frequency. The one that comes to your mind outright is the one that you use frequently or the one that you listen frequently. So whenever you hear the word course, most of the time, especially that you are a student, right? The first thing that comes to your mind is ትምህርት ነው አይደል የሚመጣልን or lesson.
Yeah.
But for Google Translate, somehow it gets a statistical information that associates course with አካሄድ ማለት ነው. By the way, it uses neural network and deep learning, and it is a statistical machine translation. Now, there is something that we have to also recognize in here. Now, after a while, mind you, this is the first one. This was done when Google included Amharic in the translation list. Then after a while, the same thing, this is a course, it says yeh course uno. What do you feel? What do you feel here? Huh?
Okay. Lesson.
Yeah. ገብቶኛል ግን it tells us that Google updates itself አይደለም?
Yes.
It updates itself, sorry. It updates itself. Because if it didn't update, or if the translation model doesn't update itself, then it should have given me the same thing. But one thing is concerning in here. Course is not an Amharic word. Rather, it is English word written using Latin. The word course is an English word which is written using a Latin script. It isn't the written using Ethiopic. It is an English word written using an Ethiopic script. ልክ ለምሳሌ ኮምፒውተር ሲል እንደዚህ ብለን ብንጽፈው it's an English word written using the Ethiopic script ነው የምንለው, because we know that computer is not an Amharic word in the first place. So why do you think this happened? David, why do you think this happened?
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity is used there. Now what it has done is this one. አይደለም ምን አደረገ? The course የሚለውን it associated it with course አለው። ይህ የሚለው is associated with this. is የሚለው ደግሞ it's associated with no ማለት ነው. This is what happened. Now the question is, previously the course was associated with አይደለም? This is what we had. Previously, the course was associated with Akahed, but now the course is associated with Korsu. Now, one thing that you should understand from this is, for Google Translate, it uses, for most of machine translation, especially the statistical approach, it uses what we call a bytext. Okay, it uses a bytext, or we call it parallel corpus. Mind you, we have said that machine learning approaches are going to use data. They are going to use data for the learning process. Machine learning requires data or examples. They need data or examples to learn from. And the data or the example that we use for machine translation is what we call a parallel corpus or a bytext. From the name itself, it is clear to understand that what we call a bytext is a text in both languages. You see, bytext malatin. So if you have two languages, let's say language 1 and language 2, so the idea is, if you have a sentence in language 1, you need to have its equivalent in language 2. which means if you have the boy is here, የሚል ቢኖረን in English, and if language to use Amharic, then here you have to say ልጁ እዚህ ነው እንላለን ማለት ነው። So we call this a bytext, which means this is the Amharic version of the English sentence ማለት ነው. Again, you can have another one. A corpus means a large collection of data for a training. You can also say the boy is mine. Sorry. The boy is mine. The ልጁ የኔ ነው ማለት ነው. Okay? So we can have many such kind of sentence ማለት ነው. You can say the car is expensive. Okay? Then here you'll say መኪናው ውድ ነው እላለሁ. So it doesn't mean I need to have many of such kind of sentence, and we call this a bytext. Bytext ማለት a text in two languages ማለት ነው. Or we call it a parallel corpus, to mean that this is the English version of this Amharic sentence, or this is the Amharic version of this English sentence ማለታችን ነው. That's why we call it parallel. It means they are equivalent in two languages. Now, for a statistical machine translation, what we are going to provide is a huge amount of such kind of data. And from this data, your learning algorithm or your machine learning system is expected to extract possible translation patterns. For example, let's take only the first two. In the first case, we have no clue of which word or which phrase is a translation of the other. ስለዚህ ምን ልንል እንችላለን? እንደዚህ ልንል እንችላለን። ልጁ የሚለው የአማርኛ word can mean the ልል እችላለሁ, because I have no information, mind you. It seems odd, አይደለ? But for the machine, this is correct. ልጁ የሚለው boy ሊለው ይችላል፣ ወይንም is ሊለው ይችላል፣ ወይንም here ሊለው ይችላል, because I have no clue of what ልጁ is. Or you can also plan this as a phrasal structure. In the phrasal ልታስቡት ትችላላችሁ. ለምሳሌ you can say ልጁ ማለት the boy ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ልጁ ማለት boy is ማለት ሊሆን ይችላል፣ ልጁ ማለት is here ማለት ሊሆን ይችላል. Every possibility can be, considered. ልጁ ማለት let's say we know it is odd, ግን the is ሊሆን ይችላል, or boy here ማለት ሊሆን ይችላል. If you think about a phrasal translation. So I have no clue. Let's fix it to only a single word. So this is the first option that we have. What about the word እዚህ? What about the word እዚህ? Even the word እዚህ, using only the first sentence, can mean any of this. የትኛው እንደሆነ አላውቅም. It can be any of this. The same is true for the word no. Mind you, I'm just being very straightforward in here. Because if you have only this sentence, then all these translations are possibilities. Okay? All these translations are possibilities. Okay? Now, the question is, what if I have another sentence? What if I have this sentence? I can build the same thing, okay? I can build the same thing over here, sorry. Yeah, let's have the same thing in here. ይሄስ ቢሆን, then I can say ልጁ የኔ ነው የሚለውን እንውሰድና, so ልጁ can mean the, then ልጁ can mean boy, ልጁ can mean is, ልጁ can mean mine. Okay, all possibilities are here. This is using the second sentence. This is just to make it, very simple for you to understand how statistical based approach can represent knowledge. የኔም እንደዛው ሊሆን ይችላል. Then let's go for the last one. Now ደግሞ can be any of this. Now the question that we have is between this and the first sentence, this is a second sentence, what common things do we have? Okay, between this and the second sentence, I mean the first sentence, እዚህ ጋር እናድርገውና what do we have in common? እዚህ ጋር እንደምታዩት, let's clean some of it. Let's clean some of it here. Okay, erase all. Let's have a different pen. እዚህ ጋር እንደምታዩት ምን ብሏል? There are some common things that we have in here, አይደለ? ልጁ ላይ in the first sentence we have the end boy. ልጁ ላይ we have the end boy. አይደለ? እዚህ የሚለው it has nothing in common, but we know that the end boy ከተወሰደ the end boy cannot be እዚህ. It cannot be ነውም ሊሆን አይችልም because the end boy are associated with, with the word ልጁ in two sentences. Okay, እዚህ ጋር ደግሞ ልጁ እንደዚህ ከሆነ is እና mine እንደማይሆን እናውቃለን. Okay, ከዛስ ነው የሚለው ከኢዝ ጋር እዚህ ጋር አለ፣ ነው የሚለው ከኢዝ ጋር እዚህ ጋር አለ. you see this two ማለት ነው. So it tells you that ነው here ሊሆን አይችልም፣ ነው boy ሊሆን አይችልም፣ ዘ ሊሆን አይችልም፣ mine ሊሆን አይችልም። እዚህም is here የሚል አለ፣ እዚሁ የሚለው ሌላ ቦታ ስለሌለ እንተዋለን። የኔ የሚለው the ሊሆን አይችልም፣ boy ሊሆን አይችልም፣ is but የኔ የሚለው is mine. You see the kind of association that can be created? And if you have many such kind of sentence, then you can build a kind of a translation dictionary. አሁን እዚህ ባለን መሰረት ምን ፈጥረናል? The boy የሚለው is equivalent to ልጁ። ቀጥሎስ ነው የሚለው is associated with is። ቀጥሎ ደግሞ የኔ የሚለው is associated with mine. Mind you, በጣም ቀለል አድርጌ ነው ያስቀመጥኩት so that you can see the idea. እዚህ የሚለው ደግሞ is equivalent to here ማለት ነው። You see? So you can create such kind of a translation dictionary from a bytext. So as I said, the most important thing in here is to come up with a bytext. And the bytext is a sentence in one language being translated to the other. So what we know is Google is going to make use of such kind of bytext a lot, all machine translation. So the idea that I want you to take in here is from the bytext, just like using the example that we have seen, the term the course in English co-occur with the Ethiopic script course from the Amharic text ማለት ነው። ብዙ ጊዜ አብረው appear አድርገዋል in the bytext. In the previous case, the course and አካሄድ ነበሩ አብረው occur ያደረጉት. But now the course was co-occurring with the Ethiopic script course many times. And it tells you that whenever Google updates its database, which means the database means a parallel corpus, then a different statistical results would help Google to make a choice than the previous. Mind you, and again, very recently, ይህ ትምህርቱ ነው ብዬ ስሰጠው ደግሞ ምን አለ? This is a lesson አለ. This is a good translation, right? The lesson means ትምህርት ነው. This means ይህ ነው. Is means no. So it's a very good translation in here. I gave another one for Google Translate, which says አበበ በሶ በላ እኔ እመጣለሁ እየመጣው ነው። So አበበ በሶ በላን ምን አለ? አበበ is a name which is frequently found in the English script as well as in the Amharic, so it was easy. በላ ate ብሎታል. But በሶ የሚለውን ነገር it says some. I don't know what it would say today, but at that time this was a translation. Now here I want you to notice two things. Okay, I want you to notice two things. One is it has what we call word or phrase level translation. Okay, it has word or phrase level translation. That's why አበበን to አበበ, ate to bella, Sam or Basom to Sami Adargo. But in addition to that, it has grammar. If you remember, we said the English grammar is subject, verb, object, whereas the Amharic, the Amharic grammar order is subject, object, verb. Abebe, Beso, Bella no ያልነው. So the subject is Abebe, the object is Beso, and the action or the verb is Bella. But as you can see, the Google Translate has switched or rearranged the order. What does it mean? It's not only concerned about the word-to-word translation or a phrase-to-phrase translation, but it also is concerned about the syntax or the grammar of the language. So that's why we say that translation has to worry about every language, knowledge about the, both languages. I am coming, okay. I am on the way. This is a very good translation, okay. So this is the exercise for tomorrow. Try to do translation from English to Amharic and from Amharic to English and identify interesting cases, okay. And what I want you to do is make sure to post that on our Telegram group. ያገኛችሁትን Telegram group ላይ post አድርጉና ከቻላችሁ try to give some insight, try to reflect on why the translation happened in such a way. Mind you, what you are going to post is only interesting cases. ዝም ብላችሁ ሁሉንም post እንድታደርጉ አልፈልግም። ለምሳሌ this is Ethiopia ብላችሁ ይሄ እቺ ኢትዮጵያ ነች ስላለ if you post it, then that won't be interesting. I want to see interesting translations. So try to come up with any translation on Google Translate and try to post those with interesting cases or interesting translation elements in our Telegram group. And if possible, try to explain it. Okay? Tagwaban? Okay, good.